Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate, another episode of the summer deep dives across all clubs in the EFL. And this time we're talking about the world's oldest football league club and the world's newest. It's Notts County. And who better to be joined than the wonderful Tom Williams from Notts Stats. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you, Gab?
I'm great, thank you, mate. First of all, I've absolutely loved your signing posts across non-league football and the EFL this summer. How are you getting on with those?
Yeah, I've got another one. Got trying to do Wigan today. Obviously with some of their most recent news. So, yeah, no, really good fun to do them. I'll be honest, the Championship and League One ones are a little bit out of my comfort zone. So a lot of them are a bit of guesswork. But for the non-league ones, I've been getting quite a few right. So it's been a bit of a mixed bag, I suppose.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And from my point of view, I absolutely love it when I see, other people sort of breaking out and producing EFL content as well, because I think it's so important that we promote these leagues and, promote an interest in it, because these leagues, it is a bit of a challenging time for some of these leagues because the Premier League, hoards a lot of the resources and, that causes all sorts of challenges. So we really need to sort of push out the message that these leagues, are so unpredictable. They're so wonderful. They're great to watch, and I'm so glad we've got you as part of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're so much fun, and just watching. Obviously, I'm trying to watch even more games from League Two, I suppose, just for not stepping into their next season and watching it. It's so much fun, and the National League was like that as well for us. And you're right, the Premier League does hold all the resources, but I've watched more EFL games just watching the playoffs this year than I have the Premier League, because I don't watch the Premier League really at all now. Just because there's so much good football out there that I haven't really got time to watch Premier League as well as all the other leagues.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much in the same boat on that. Talk to Notts County. I remember. Obviously, I haven't studied Notts County so much in the last few years because you've been in different leagues to the ones that I study. But I do remember going to Meadow Lane and just being so impressed with the atmosphere at the club, even when there hasn't been an awful lot to be proud of in terms of on the pitch. That group of fans behind the goal who sort of go all game, and I feel like I'm so glad that you as a club now have a coach, a group of players, a club to really embrace and just be proud of, and you must be delighted with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think our attendances are so good now. I think we'll probably consistently hit. We might even almost hit double figures a lot of weeks now, which is obviously is quite big for the fourth tier. So yeah, and we've got a massive stadium, and sometimes, unfortunately, because it is so big, we have one side not full. So sometimes it doesn't look amazing because of how it's set up and the way fans are sort of put in the far corner. But yeah, the Cop is brilliant atmosphere, and to be honest with you, our away following has been brilliant this season. We
It
sold
always
out.
is, to be honest.
Yeah, but this season we sold out. I mean, the Wrexham game, obviously, I know Wrexham's a different story, but the Wrexham game sold out in a matter of seconds. It was like a few minutes and we've sold out our allocation for that. So yeah, the support is brilliant, and yeah, it's great to see. Definitely,
Mm.
there's a real feel-good factor around the club, and like you say, we've not always had stuff to be proud of on the pitch, but I think even before a ball was kicked this season, there was a sense, a collective sense in the fan base which we've not had for a long time. We were all behind the manager. The previous two managers have had people that are for them and people that are against them. Whereas this manager, even before we saw how brilliant he is, and you told us how good he'd be, but yeah, you were completely right on that. But before he would even seen his style, I think the circumstances he came in at a perfect time because we were ready to get behind
Mm.
manager 100%, and that's what we've done. And he's repaid us. He's repaid us more than we could have imagined.
Yeah, I actually rewatched this morning the interview with Luke Williams after the promotion victory over Chesterfield at Wembley, and he came across as such a humble guy because he sort of acknowledged that foundations had been laid before him under Neil Ardley and Ian Birchnell, which he didn't need to do, and the hug with the media guy at the end was just that was absolutely lovely. But I think that just perfectly summarises even when he was almost kind of half having a laugh with some of the players during the interview as well. So it shows, how much affection there is for him. But I do want to go sort of take his point seriously as well, because I remember Notts County in the Football League, tail end of their last stint in the Football League. It felt like every manager Notts County appointed was the complete opposite of the one that had come before. And I think that is a trap for a lot of clubs, because they think, well, we need to solve this problem, so let's get a manager in that solves that problem, and then that creates another problem. And you can't really build anything with that of substance with that way of doing things. And what I love about Notts County now is that it does feel like there's a complete alignment right away through the football club.
Yeah, no, definitely. And as much as we've all said, and he will stay this summer, there's no doubt. But people have said, he's the most important man to keep at the club, and that is 100% correct. But there is also a sense that, well, maybe the fans don't share this, but I feel that even if he did go, we would have the contingency plan in place because we're so well run. When we lost Birchnell, I'm not saying Birchnell was amazing. Obviously, he went to Forest Green, and I don't know the story inside out there, but he didn't handle the step up perhaps as people would expected. But when he left,
circumstances, I think, yeah.
But when he left, it was like we weren't too worried because we know that we've got the next manager in place. Whereas, like you say before, under previous ownership regimes, it would be panic, and it's the same if we lose a player. Like we've lost Reuben Rodriguez this week. I'm sure we'll get onto that. But we've got plans in place, and we trust this ownership and the way that the club is run, to a T. And Luke Williams is obviously a massive, massive part of our success. But he did build on foundations that are there. And so he inevitably will move on. I'm not saying it's going to be in the next 24 months, he might stay for 2 years, but inevitably he is that good of a coach. He's going to be a championship manager, I think. So he inevitably will have to move on. But we all trust the ownership and the way the club is run to find a suitable replacement that is similar enough to have continuity. Like you say, instead of chopping and changing, and I think you're right, it needs to be a clear direction, and we've definitely got that.
Well, there needs to be continuity of surnames, in my opinion. I mean, that you should be in the conversation, I reckon. No, I think, listen, what an incredible job he's done. And I think I remember when Swindon Town got to the playoffs in League One in 14-15, and they had this really exciting, expansive team. I remember them going to Coventry that season and just absolutely played them off the park with this really exciting young team. I think they had a lot of loanees at that time, and John Swift in that team, who was really exciting, and Nathan Byrne from right wing back, and really exciting team. And at the time, sort of Mark Keeper was the manager, but I do very strongly remember Swindon Town fans saying Luke Williams was possibly the brains behind the operation, or certainly a very influential figure in terms of the coaching side of things. So I think I always knew that he had those sort of tactical ideas and the sort of nuances to his ideas that would make him successful. But it's a case of him coming into the right structure as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that it was a year ago yesterday he was appointed as Notts County manager. So I look back on sort of the work that I had a look at him before he signed and look at his style, and I completely forgot about it until I watched it yesterday, and it was clips of his Swindon team, when he became the boss full time. And you can see in that team a lot of what we do now. It's exciting football. It's effective as well. He's a very effective manager. And you're right. I think it didn't go right for him at Swindon, obviously, at all. It started really well, and obviously didn't finish particularly well for him. But I think you're right. He has to come into the right team, the right structure. He's coming to a club that is well placed. I mean, we were always going to be one of the favourites to go up last season, just simply because of the size of the club and the budget we have in that league. But he's blown that out of the water and played football that we've never really seen our team play before, because we were playing pretty football before, but now we're really effective as well, and it's exciting to watch. But yeah, he's very, very good, and he has stamped his blueprint on the team already.
Well, that sounds really encouraging. I think one of the most iconic photos of the National League last season was the one of Luke lifting up the National League sort of playoff winners trophy, almost as though he was looking towards the skies towards Jason Turner, who sadly passed away in March, I believe. But it's obviously taken far too young, and obviously pass on my belated condolences to his friends and family and everything. But I suppose it's as if his legacy lives on to a certain extent.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think it's absolutely terrible. And he was a massive part of the club, and I had very limited interactions. But even very early on, from when I started producing content, I was sent a message on his behalf, saying keep doing what you're doing. So even he's such a guy in the community, reaching out to even people like myself, content creators, if you like, or whatever you want to call it. He's that type of guy. He was amazing for the club, and I think it was like, people keep saying it, but it was true. It's like we were on a mission from him when he passed. It was like we were always going to get promoted, and you kind of had that feeling that even in the way we did go up, it was like we didn't particularly, in the 2 games we played, we didn't particularly deserve to go up, but it was almost like he was, and I'm not a believer in those type of things, but he's looking over us, and it was almost like it was meant to be. So yeah, there's definitely some special qualities there around that, and it's obviously a terrible thing that he did pass, but he remains part of the journey, and he was a big part of everything, and I think it's brilliant that the management ensured that he was part of it, and he was kept at the forefront of our minds. So yeah, like you say, terrible, but we definitely had to take the motivational factors from it.
Yeah, absolutely, and you certainly did that, and it's almost quite amusing to me saying you didn't necessarily deserve to win the Flash because you got 107 points. I almost feel like if you'd not, that's the paradox of it, I suppose. If you'd not won the playoffs, it would have been I just think that it just would have been ridiculous, really. I'm so glad that you have got promoted, because I think getting 107 points in a 46 game season probably deserves promotion. Who were the most important players? Obviously, Macaulay Langstaff scored all the goals.
Yeah, well, Langstaff obviously scored a lot of goals. And to be honest, I would have said him and Reuben were our 2 most important players, but they were probably the 2 that towards the back end of the season, I don't know whether it was the pressure getting to them, or whether it was because teams were marking them out of games. I mean, Maka had to deal with that pretty much as soon as he hit 20 goals. It was like from that point on, his next 22 goals were all really impressive, the fact he scored them, because early on teams weren't really marking him, so he was getting chances. Whereas after people were realising he was marked out of games so often, so it's so impressive that he managed to get those goals.
Sorry, can I jump in on that, Tom? Did that almost work in your favour a little bit? Because if opposing teams have to put an extra man on Macaulay Langstaff, do you then get more space for your Reuben Rodriguez's, another player, your Bostocks, even like going back slightly deeper?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's kind of what happened. So Reuben was kind of a key man, and he had a really slow start to the season. I think because of that, teams were knew he was the main threat, so it freed up Langstaff. And then the opposite happened when Langstaff was marked out of the game, and then Reuben got more space. And it's the same as when Chickson went on a really brilliant goal scoring run at the back post. He hit double figures, and then teams sort of started to realise that he was getting goals and open more. That's when Maka then went kind of on his second run of goals. So a lot of the time it was, we were finding different ways, and that's the brilliance of Luke Williams again. But he was finding different ways to the teams have worked out how to deal with that. Okay, we'll create a new attacking threat. So yeah, Langstaff definitely obviously is a key player, because anyone that scores 40 plus goals in a season is going to be a key player, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Matty Palmer is undoubtedly our unsung player. He is just so vital to the way we play. He's just, I'm not saying he just controls the game, and we always say he almost like teleports around the pitch. Unless you watch him, he will just, so if you're watching the game, he'll then pop up a couple of seconds later in another position. You're like, how has he got there? And he's never tired, but he never has to sprint anywhere. He's just football IQ, just absurd. And I genuinely believe he's a League One player still.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting, because I've felt with Matty Palmer, it's like he gets around the pitch like you say, but it doesn't look like he's sprinting that hard to get there. There's something sort of slightly odd about that ability, something almost a little bit unerring. I mean, maybe there's 2 Matty Palmers. Maybe you think there's only one Matty Palmer, and actually there's 2 of them.
Yeah, well, that's how he plays. He's like there's 2 of them on the pitch. He's crazy, and he's never out of. He's always picking up positions, and you think, wow, he's got there. It's crazy. And that has only gone on another level since Bostock came in, and he's another key player. And to be honest, he had a slow start as well. I don't think you'll mind people saying that when he signed, we were like, "Oh, Bostock and Palmer, what a partnership!" And then they played together, and then there was a thought in the fan base that this actually isn't going to work. These two can't play at the same time. But it only lasted about 4 or 5 games, and then they sort of got clicking together. And now it's just having those two. It was a little bit unfair in the National League, really. The two players. I mean, again, I think they're playing below their level, perhaps even next season in League
Yeah,
Two.
I mean, sorry, I was just kind
No,
of
no,
cheers. Yeah, I just picking up on that actually, because I would imagine that you've kind of got John Bostock being the conductor that's sitting and collecting the ball off the defence, and then sort of Matty Palmer, maybe more of an 8 perhaps, buzzing around the pitch, I suppose.
yeah, that's how we kind of start and set up, but they do switch in game, which is so seamless. That if Bozzy goes, then Matty will sit in, and vice versa. And what was so impressive with Bostock was that he develops as a player. I mean, against Wrexham, he played as a 10, a disruptive
Oh,
10.
really?
He was like pressing up, he played pressing up the pitch and using his physical attributes. But obviously, his instincts are to play deep. Before he
Yeah,
signed, it was
that
watched
really
him.
surprised me actually.
Yeah, it surprised us really. I think it surprised Wrexham. I think the boss has seen in him. He's got the physical attributes to play it, and he does normally play deeper, but he can play, and he's got the attributes to play further up. And we have used him there before, and I think that's what's so great about our midfield is it's so versatile. They'll
Mm.
switch in game. Those two will switch all the time, and it gives Bostock because he obviously had to get up to speed as well. He hadn't played for quite a while, so yeah. But that's interesting that he hasn't played that sort of role in the EFL before.
I don't think so. I think the sort of feeling about him from his spell at Doncaster was more that he was just someone who would sit in and keep things ticking over. Wouldn't have thought he was one who'd kind of necessarily be particularly physical, or certainly not. I wouldn't have considered him a pressing 10. So that's really interesting. But I suppose it comes back to my we can probably link this to the development of Adam Chickson, where he became a sort of back post specialist, which wouldn't have been a trait associated with him before, especially those long busting runs. But one of my beliefs in football is that a good coach can get the best out of what they have. A great coach can change what they have by seeing new layers of development in players. And I think that's what we're seeing with Luke Williams.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's undoubtedly the best season of Chickson's career. I think. He would say that himself, and he's played high up. He's played very, very high up in the EFL pyramid. So, he's had a brilliant season, and it's unlike what we thought. I mean, before the season, we were kind of saying he's not attacking enough. We need a more attacking left-sided player, and then he chips in with double figures. He's one of our top scorers. So he's had a brilliant campaign. He kind of slowed down towards the end, and we saw the emergence of Jody Jones at left wing back as well. And we're not sure if he's going to play there next season or.
That sounds like such an exciting option, having Jody Jones as a wing back.
Yeah, no, he's so good. He's so quick, but he's got so much quality as well. And I think he took time to. His natural instinct was to cut in from the right, so I think he was struggling with the left side a little bit. But as he's developed there, he's been so good there. And I mean, having those two options there is just brilliant.
Can you alternate maybe? Is there the option to maybe move Jody Jones to right wing back in game at certain moments?
Yeah, no, we have. So we've definitely done that quite a lot, and with Aaron the Main as well. Who I'm not sure he's still not re-signed, so I'm unsure. I think he'll be staying in the EFL, so he's definitely a player for you to keep an eye on. But I'm unsure. I've not heard if he's going to re-sign or not. But yeah, he was playing sort of right wing back, and Jody was on the left, and they'd switch. And this is even in the final, we switched them, and they would play inverted. And I think that might be the approach we have this season with Will Randall signing from Sutton. Obviously, he is naturally left-sided and Jody's naturally right-sided, but they could switch in-game and be on their stronger feet on the outside. So we've got loads of options and versatility in our squad.
Yeah, there's been a real theme in the EFL in recent seasons where sort of wingers who have had great great careers in sort of League Two. In more recent years, have kind of been converted, especially in really attacking wingback systems, into wingback. So Nicky Adams, for example, for much of his career, he was a winger at Bury and one or two other clubs. And then I think Ryan Lowe at Bury converted him into a wingback. So I think it can be done. And with Jody Jones, I think Jody Jones, the sky's the limit for him. If he can get past the injury issues that he's, I'm so unlucky, Tom. Really, I was almost so frustrated for him because when he came through the ranks at Dagenham, I remember watching him as a 16-year-old start for Dagenham. I think it was against Exeter back in 2015, and you could see then that he was just such a bright talent. And then when he got picked up by Coventry, I think it was, and then the first half of the 17-18 season, he scored absolute ton of goals, cutting in from the right onto his left. Oh, you'll know that, won't you? He scored hat-trick against Notts County, didn't he? And then he got injured midway through that season. And then since then, it was really a series of injuries, which was really hard for him. And Coventry have progressed so much, it was probably difficult for him to sort of incorporate himself back into Mark Robbins's plans. But yeah, I think his potential is huge, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, obviously, I wish he hadn't had the injuries, and he's undoubtedly an unbelievable player. And I'm really hoping he can stay. So far so good. And touch wood, and I have just touched some wood. He is, he stays fit because he is a brilliant player. He has been excellent for us, and I think he's probably unlucky that Oxford didn't use him. I mean, I think we're lucky they didn't use him, and obviously he decided not to sign on again for another season because he's loved it with us. But I don't think we've seen the best of him this season, but you kind of got the impression that he was too good for our level that we were at, and perhaps it didn't quite work for him to start with because we didn't play with that right-sided winger where he perhaps would feel most comfortable. But it's a testament to him as a player and as a person that he's adapted to a new role, and I think he is, he as you say, the sky's the limit. He's got so much potential. I'm really excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think versatility in football, Tom. I don't know what you think about this, but I think so much of that has to do with mindset. I don't think versatility is linked so much with individual ability, where you have the ability to play in. I just think it's that mindset where it's like, I've got to play here, so I'm going to make the absolute best of it. And I think there's some players that don't have that mindset because they see themselves as a sort of a fixed role, but I mean, we've talked about coaches being able to see, potential for growth in certain players and develop new skills. But I also think that it takes something in the players to actually be able to really embrace those challenges as well.
No, I agree, because I mean, when you play football yourself, these professional players are so good. I mean, they're so good at football. It's beyond your wildest dreams of what we could be able to do. And a lot of these players come through because they're so good at youth football. They play in, most of them are attackers when they're young kids. So, you hear so many stories that, the centre back, he was actually a striker till he was 16 or whatever. So I think that most players could play in a lot of positions, just that they are so used to where they have come through and developed from 16 to 20 or whatever. They've been a right back, so they think, well, I can't play in central midfield or whatever. But you're right, there's a lot of it is about mindset. And I think that comes into what we've had this season, and what our recruitment is so good is that we aren't just recruiting players, we're recruiting people. And I think we do a lot of more background checks on character now. I mean, Toby Adebayo-Rolling, who we signed, who has been injured for quite a while now, but when he signed, he was the first signing of last summer, and you saw his personality coming through straight away. And I mean, he's now got social media. He only got it recently, and he's hilarious on social media. But he's he's a great character and a great person. And I think that's what we've been trying to recruit, is people that fit within our dressing room. So I think there's definitely a sense that there's certain players we perhaps could sign, but we go, well, would they fit within our dressing room? And we sort of steer away from them. So I think that is almost as important as on the pitch. We've been trying to sign players that have got the right mentality for Luke Williams to work with.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure there'll be more of that this summer. Talk to me about the defence for Notts County and how important the likes of Connell Rawlinson and Aidan Baldwin were last season.
Yeah, no, so they were, and I think there's going to be a lot of from our fan base. We got caught out a couple of times in the big games at the high line, but I think that's just the way we play. And if you play a possession-based, high-intensity style, you have to play the high line, because if you play with a deep defensive line, the gaps are just far too big to cover. So next season we will get caught out, and you will see teams getting behind us, definitely. But it's a risk we take, and what's so good about our defense, I mean, every player in our team has to be good on the ball, but Aidan Baldwin has got a ridiculous range of passing. He came in from League One, and I know he only played, I think, 9 games for MK Nons that season, but he played. It was still looked okay in the games he played. And again, he's another one that looked too good for the level. He's one that struggled with injuries a little bit this season, but when he has been fit, he just looks so good. He's so quick, and that's what's so key for Baldwin is when players do get in behind. If he's not in the team, we tend to struggle. So Wrexham, he wasn't in the team, and I think if he was, we might have won that game, because their balls in behind. He's so quick. He has that recovery in him. And on the ball, he's ridiculous. He made the most passes per 90 of any player in the National League, um, because he's a key distributor for us. And on the ball, Carl Cameron, our captain, is also so good. Going forward from left centre back, he gets forward and almost plays like, at times he plays like a left winger, because he gets that high up. So yeah, definitely the quality on the ball again. I know it's probably boring for people to hear about Notts County on the ball all the time and talk about defenders, but we didn't do a lot of defending last season because we averaged so much of the ball, and I'm sure we'll have to do a bit more defending this season, because obviously the step up in quality. So yeah, I think Baldwin's probably the key defender, if you like, because he gets back and recovers.
Yeah, Baldwin's the middle centre back as well. Did you
Yeah,
say? Yeah, so
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense, because if you've got overlapping centre backs playing as wingers at times, you kind of need your middle centre back to be super quick, not just covering going back to his own goal, but also maybe covering across sometimes. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to sort of explore those combinations. I think you've put together some incredible threads about the combination play from Notts County in wide areas between the wing back, the wide centre backs, the midfielders. Yeah, just talk to us a little bit about that.
yeah. So probably one of our best. Yeah, so either side, you've got Sam Austin, who is a player that I think he's new to the EFL this year. I would suppose. He's been kidding it stuff for a long time. He was on the left side with Chickson, and they had a lovely link up down that side. I mean, Sam Austin's a brilliant player, and he's, I think, a player that a lot of EFL fans are going to fall in love with, because he's that type of player. Sam Austin, he's so clever. He picks up spaces, and he's another unsung hero a lot of the time. And I probably should have mentioned him in key players. He's absolutely, he's fantastic, and I think you'll see that this season. And then down the right side, we had Reuben and Aaron Nemain, both of whom might be leaving. I mean, Reuben's definitely left. And again, that would be the combination down the right hand side, and that'd be slightly different. So that would be more playing onto Nemain, who's a very quick wing back. He'd run, the ball would play through to him, and you have to run onto it. Whereas on the left side, it'd be the ball to Austin. He'd probably be the one that would get the cross in rather than Chickson. And then you'd have Cameron supporting on that side. So on the left side, you'd often have 3 players going forwards. On the right side, you'd often have Reuben playing the ball through to the main. So it almost we were very right side dominant in our attacks, because that was very much our style, was to get it through to the main to run onto to get a first time cross away. Whereas the left side was a bit more measured.
So it would be a case of someone like an Aaron Nemain providing that directness down the right and that thrust to sort of open the game up for you. And then sometimes you'd get a cross in and Chickson would be there at the back post, or Macaulay Langstaff would be there to sort of poach and that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. You've summed it up better than me there. Directness, exactly. More direct down the right, whereas down the left is slightly more measured. Chickson would be more reluctant to take his man on. He hasn't got that burst of pace that the main perhaps has down the left, and you'd have Austin drift into that left channel more and a lot. Whereas our right centre back is a sort of, they still get forward, but they're a little bit more reserved than Cameron at left centre back, who is very much joins the attacks. So the left side would be yeah, we don't come down the left as wide. It'd be more sort of in that half space, the channel, whereas the right side is quite wide, quite hugging the byline, or play through to the main in the box and he cuts it back. But with the main, he'd be first time cut back. It'd be as quick as possible. The actions would be, first time you drill it hard across the box. Whereas on the left, sometimes a bit more looping crosses or cut back to the edge of the area sort of thing. So there's definitely a difference to the way we attack down each side.
Yeah, I suppose the interesting thing would be that if opposing sides wanted to maybe double up on someone like the main and try and deny space for Notts County on their right side of the pitch, and maybe funnel the ball over to the left, and then try and isolate Adam Chickson, who isn't necessarily a 1v1 type. That's going to be interesting to see if opposing teams find different ways of sort of countering that sort of threat.
Yeah, no, and I think that's definitely an approach teams will have, and we might not have the main next season, but Adebere Rowland, who should be back from injury. I mean, the main said it himself. Adebere Rowland's actually quicker than him, so he's actually a quicker right wing back. So we'd have a lot of pace down the right side. But on the left, yeah, you're right. We might have to work it more patiently down the left. But I think that's where Sam Austin will come into his own, and perhaps Will Randall, who we've signed as well, might play in that left role. So yeah, it will be interesting to see, and I think there'll be a lot more for us to work out this season because, as you say, I think more so the defenders, the quality of the defence improves, a lot as we step up, and I think we'll also have to replace Reuben, who's such a creative player. And obviously, we haven't spoken about McGoldrick yet, but
yeah, of course, yeah. It's so strange, isn't it? We've not come onto him. First of all, let's talk about Reuben Rodriguez because he's someone who's had. I think he's been at Notts County for 3 years, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Been incredibly influential behind the progress that you've made.
Yeah, he's a great player, and he was massively influential to our promotion. And he's one that I think he'll probably admit it himself. In the playoffs, he wasn't at his best. He actually watched back when we came out of the Bournemouth semi-final. Everyone was saying, "Oh, Reuben had a really poor game," but we watched it back. He had a really good game, other than his finishing, where he just snatched at every chance. And it's the same in the final. He had a good game, but he snatched at his chances, and he does the same for his goal. He snatches at it, and fortunately the ball bounces over Fitzsimmons and it goes in. So, but he is. I mean, he's by far the most creative player. I think it's only Kevin De Bruyne that averages more like creative passes per 90 minutes in the top 5 divisions of England. He just has this vision. He sees things before other players, and I think a lot of the time he's playing football at a different sort of speed and level to a lot of people. You can tell his quality. He'll pick a pass out, and it's like there's so many times it got to the point where it was not even a surprise or anymore, but he'd put the ball in between the centre back and the full back, and it'd be perfectly weighted, perfectly positioned. They can't do anything about it. The main's on the end of it, and we're in behind. He has that vision and the quality to execute those passes. So, yeah, Reuben Rodriguez is brilliant, and Oxford fans are going to love him. And I think it's a mood that really suits him. A lot of our fans were kind of upset, I think, because they view Oxford as a team that could have dropped down to the division we were in, but I think they're overlooking the fact they've got a really exciting young manager. They're going to play a similar system, I think, to us, a similar shape. And they're a team that are consistently at the top, other than last season, consistently at the top end of League One. So I think that is a really good move for him.
Yeah, well, let's hope he can really thrive with that. But it is going to be interesting to see whether for somebody like Macaulay Langstaff, having scored all the goals he did last season, having played under Luke Williams and knowing the way that he works and loving that style of play, I almost think is it a better option to stay at Notts County and play as part of this team than maybe go to somewhere in League One where the style's going to be a bit different. You're going to have to feed off scraps a little bit more if you pick the wrong club, and there's a bit more of a risk, I guess, with that. Whereas I think sometimes we underestimate the atmosphere of working a day to day at a place where you're loved and trusted.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I want to say on Langstaff, there's 2 things quickly. One,
Sure.
he he's another player that we talked about Luke Williams changing players. Actually, when Langstaff signed, he was more of like a wide forward. He did play up front, but he often played on the right wing, and he was very quick and he got a lot of assists and goals. Whereas I remember early on pre-season, I think it might be Cambridge. We played someone in pre-season, and he got a hat trick. We played 2 games, we played 2 different teams. It was like a 45-minute game, and it was a weird sort of setup. But he got a hat trick in like 7 minutes, something like that. It was very good. And in the interview after the game, he said, I've come here and I'm surprised by what the manager wants me to do, but he wants me to stay between the goalposts, basically. He doesn't want me to deviate from that. And he completely changed it to a box striker who scored 40 goals. So that's, obviously Langstaff has to take a lot of credit for the hard work. But again, that's Luke Williams changing a player from taking a player from a wide forward who runs in behind to a poacher. And the rewards have been absolutely massive. And then the other thing is on a move for him. Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors for a move for Langstaff. We've still got a 2-year deal. We don't necessarily need the money. We've shown before we don't sell players. Carl Wootton, and Reuben, we've both let them go for free. We probably could have sold both of them. Probably had offers.
Wootton, I think, suits Stockport's style probably more than yours.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm not sure how he would get on in this. And I felt sorry for Wootton. He was a player that a lot of our fans didn't like, but he was a very well-rounded forward and had to lead the line on his own in a team that perhaps didn't suit his style.
Yeah, I think for me, I look at Stockport County. I don't consider them a long balls team by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a big emphasis for them in playing forward early with quality. And I think when you do that, you've kind of got to have a centre forward that's comfortable playing with their back to goal. And I think Carl Wootton sort of facilitates that style because it gives them a platform, and then they can kind of play a bit more of the football from there. Whereas I think with Notts County, because there is so much of an emphasis on starting the attacks by going to the centre backs and by using those wide rotations and all those sorts of passages of play, I don't know that he would necessarily fit in with that as well. And maybe it makes more sense to have Macaulay Langstaff, who's that sort of poacher inside the penalty area, and not need that focal point so much.
Yeah, no, and definitely, and I'm really glad for him that it's gone well for him at Stockport. And he's been a key player for them. And again, he's another one that, had he been fit for the playoffs, who knows would have happened for them. But I'm really happy for him, and obviously we get to play him next season. And he's one that perhaps didn't suit our style 100%, but he always worked hard, and you can see his quality, and he's a very well-rounded forward, I would say. Whereas, as you say, like Langstaff has shown he's got a lot. He doesn't touch the ball a lot. Wootton was probably required to touch the ball more than Langstaff does. Langstaff has our least amount of touches and most amount of goals. So
you'll take that, won't you?
Exactly. It's pretty good, and I think we'll keep hold of him. And like you say, I'm not sure. I think if Middlesbrough come in, his boyhood club, he'll go.
It's a massive leap, though, Tom. Middlesbrough are hoping to be playing Premier League football in 12 months.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So that's what I'm hopeful we can keep hold of him, unless a Championship club does decide to pay a big fee for it by our standards, obviously not for Championship, and he's probably guaranteed to start there. He'll go. I'm not sure he'd probably go to League One. I could be completely wrong.
Okay.
But like you said, I think he's probably better off giving it another 12 months here. And then in 12 months' time, he's probably got another load in this team. He's probably scored another load of goals, even if it's 20-something in League Two.
When's his contract up?
He's still got 2 years. So we signed him on a 3-year deal last summer. So what's that, 2025. So,
okay.
So we did quite well protecting that, I think. Especially we paid £50,000 for him. So it's pretty
get more than that, won't you? So
yeah, exactly. We should get a little bit more than that. So yeah, I think, like you say, playing in a team that he knows might benefit him more. But I could be completely wrong. But I've not heard any noises. There was a lot of noises going on in January. Teams interested in him, but I think maybe because he's still under contract and we'd command a fee for him, maybe teams are put off. I don't know.
I think it's always a bit of a challenge for clubs when they've just won promotion, especially in such emphatic circumstances as Notts County, because you're in this interesting position where you kind of don't want to go against anyone that's achieved what the club has achieved last season, and you don't want to disrupt the synergy, the spirit, the togetherness. Insert any other phrase here. On the other hand, you've got to make sure that you do what's required to improve the squad and continue to improve, and you don't rest on your laurels. What does that balancing act look like for Notts County this summer?
Yeah, it's actually a really, really interesting point, because we've had discussions ourselves. Like Conor Rawlinson and Sam Slocum and Jim O'Brien. They're three players that were important for our promotion, and they've all been offered and they've all signed new deals. And maybe Rawlinson less so, but the other two definitely are going to have far reduced game time. And I imagine if we bring in another centre back, maybe Rawlinson's game time might be reduced as well. But they're important parts of the dressing room as well. They're big parts of that success. But you have to balance that, like you say. You can't be sentimental and keep players on board because they've been part of promotion. We've let three players go already. Obviously, Reuben's gone as well. That obviously wasn't our choice. But I think, we have to sign players that have got that EFL experience. But what we won't do is sign players that are on the way down. I think Will Randall's a perfect example of that. He's had a couple of years in the EFL, but he's definitely a player that's probably got more to give. And there's other players that are linked with us at the moment, sort of 25, 26. So I think we'll be looking for players that can spur us on another level, but on without a want of a better term, over the hill. In the past we've made the mistake of signing players that are sort of on the way down. I think we need to sign players that are certainly on the same trajectory as we are as a club.
Yeah, 100%, and I think that's the way the club's going to go down, because I did actually speak to Ian Birchnell on this podcast a few weeks ago, and one of the things he spoke very highly of the recruitment team at Notts County as well.
Yeah, no, and it's massive, and obviously the news recently that we could sign players from overseas obviously is huge for us, because that's kind of how we made our first sort of big signings from. I mean, Reuben was brought in from Holland, and that's a signing we can perhaps replicate, and maybe that won't be this summer because it's quite late, the news coming through, and I feel our recruitment will be based around EFL. But for example, Randall wasn't really a player that I think was on anyone's radar from our side. I think he just was announced straight away. We do, our recruitment is spot on, and other than McGoldrick, who was the worst kept secret in football, really. Other than him, all our signings are under wraps, and they you don't hear of them until 15 minutes before they sign. You think, oh wow, it's really incredible how we do our business.
Yeah, especially in this day and age, to be able to keep deals under wraps, it's quite the skill. We've kind of avoided it long enough. David McGoldrick, he's back at Meadow Lane, Tom. I think that's the coup of the League Two summer, really, because you could see. I felt even in League One last season, David McGoldrick was a class above that level. He's 35 now, but I still think he's got the occasional burst of pace. That's not to say that he's explosive or anything, but he can still get away from his opponents and make those runs to the back stick. He's great between lines because he's so sort of elusive and creative, and he'll get a few goals as well. I'm just so excited for this signing. And again, I think it's the style of play. I think he wants to play in a style that really works for him, and absolutely can't wait to see David McGoldrick play.
No, yeah, me neither. And to be honest, I still can't believe it. I mean, when he was first rumoured, I thought, it's got to just be rumours. I mean, he's been. I wouldn't mind if he come off a lacklustre season in League One, but he's come off of his career best goal scoring season, and people were saying he's the best player in League One. I mean, he might not be the very best, but he was definitely in the conversation for best performer last season.
Yeah.
So to drop a level to us, is ridiculous for us, and like you say, I think he's going to be perfect in our system. And you're right, he is elusive. He's brilliant between the lines, and like you say, with a burst of pace, he does come alive. He's one of those players that if you watch him for a full 90, he perhaps looks a bit tired, but when the ball comes near him, he's alive, he's alert.
Yeah,
and, he suddenly finds that extra draw of energy to to complete an action. So yeah, I think he'll go straight into the Reuben Rodriguez role. I really think he'll just be a like for like almost replacement. I know he played as technically a 9 and withdrawn 9 for Derby last season, but I think he'll play where Reuben did, which was sort of just off Langstaff, because he's got that ability in between the lines, but also the goal scoring threat.
So it'll be a box midfield of Austin, McGoldrick, Palmer, and Bostock. Then
I
do you reckon?
think that's what our strongest team will be. Yeah, which
Mm,
really is really quite exciting for us. I mean, obviously Austin is a player that perhaps is new to the level, but the other three are players that have played far above that level before.
mm.
Um, and yeah, that's a really exciting box midfield in behind Macaulay Langstaff. I think that it's just ridiculous. But McGoldrick, I mean, he might not play every minute. He might not play. He played, I think, like 65% of minutes for Derby. But if he plays 65% of minutes in League Two level and produces the performances he did last season, then
Yeah,
we're talking silly numbers, and it's
yeah.
it's an
He,
unbelievable signing. Yeah.
he's a fit lad as well. I mean, I watched an interview with David Prutton on League of 72 that Paul Warne did, and one thing he said was that because Dave McGoldrick is so technically gifted, and I think he came into it almost half assuming that he'd be a bit of a luxury player, but actually his work rate has been unreal. So I think he is going to fit into the intensity that Luke Williams is going to need, because that's another thing that I think we've touched on, but I don't think we've quite explored the fact that Notts County do play with such an intense, high pressing style. Because if you're going to play with such a high line where your defenders are on the halfway line, pretty much, your attacking players have got to be right at it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's yes. You're right. It's a key feature of our players. We are so intense. Even in possession, we're so intense. And we're not a team that just cycles possession around the back line. We're a team that we play high up the pitch in those forward areas with intense possession, quick, fast tempo. And that comes off the ball as well. And McGoldrick will fit that. I do believe he has the work rate to do that. And I think, not to keep talking about him because he's gone, but Reuben Rodriguez, that's what's so exciting about him as a player, is that he is not just a luxury creative player. He's so robust and he works so hard. And so do all of our players. Sam Austin, for example, has bulked up throughout the season. He's not big and muscly by any stretch, but he's a lot more robust and physically capable now that he can carry out the pressing style and go into challenges. And I think that's the key feature of our play, is that when we do, on the rare occasion, lose the ball, we work so hard and tireless to get it back. So we are so intense. There was a slight worry at times where the Luke Williams style was perhaps getting to us because we had a very small squad last season. There were times when we had 3 outfielders or 4 outfielders on the bench and 1 keeper. So we were operating with a very small squad, and a few injuries here and there were quite worrying.
Have you got a development squad, Tom?
I think we will do. We do, but I think now that we're back in the Football League, we can get like academy status back, and there's going to be a lot more funding. So that is quite exciting. I think we're looking at adding a couple of young players to that. And obviously, we're in quite a good location for as much
Yeah,
as that
because
level.
Nottingham is such a passionate football city, and it's not always, probably in the last 25 years, necessarily had teams that really sort of do justice to that. But I think the area as well, it's great area for sort of picking up young talent. Forest have done it in recent years with Gary Brazil as academy manager. So I think there's a great opportunity there for Notts County.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're in a great area, picking up talent from other clubs that perhaps let people go, and we can pick them up. I mean, we've got a young lad, Lufa Munikandatha, who went out on loan sort of last season to the National League North, and he was at Forest as a youngster, and he's sort of coming through. And I'm not sure he might get more game time next season, because we're allowed to have 7 on the bench. Before, with 5 on the bench is so difficult. And we'd often go without a keeper, although towards the back end of the season, we started to field a keeper on the bench because it was getting to the point where it was too high of a risk not to have one on there. And talking of keepers, we've got Tiernan Brooks, who's Ireland's under-21 goalkeeper starting. He's going to go out on loan as well. So we have got some players coming through, but I think we're going to operate with a bigger squad this season. which will only help us with our intensity because we can probably afford to. Say Sam Austin, he a lot of the time he would play one game, then he'd be on the bench the next game, and we can afford to do that even more this season because we'll have a bigger squad, and it means our intensity hopefully will only increase, which makes us even better on the pitch. So it all works quite well for us.
What are you expecting in terms of numbers then?
In terms of points, or
No, sorry, no, I mean in terms of number of additions.
oh, sorry. Yeah, it's difficult because we still haven't got Cameron and the main renewed. I think if they both renew, we won't have to add in those areas. If we might have to add a centre back anyway, to be honest.
Okay.
So you've got one or
Yeah.
potentially three if they don't renew. We'll definitely have to add at least one centre midfielder. I think we might add two.
Okay.
And we get the goalkeeper as well. We're signing a goalkeeper, a senior, a first choice goalkeeper. So anywhere between three and five more bodies in, which
Okay.
is quite a nice number, I think, because we've already signed three if you count Jedi Jones permanently. So and we've lost. I mean, McGoldrick and Reuben sort of a straight swap, so we've only really added one player to the squad as such, who wasn't there last season. So I think between 3 and 5, it'll be quite a nice number to build on the squad. I think we've currently got 19 under contract.
Yeah.
First team players, so adding 3 or 4 more would be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. You don't want to over egg the pudding where you sort of bring in too many players and then it's difficult to give them all game time. And I think that yes, you want to add a bit of extra depth, but this is another point. How many of those additions do you think have to improve the immediate first 11?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Cause I didn't even mention left back really, because we've got obviously Joe Jones and Will Randall, who possibly will play left wing back, but we haven't really got a backup left back as such. If Chickson, and if we want to play a 4 at the back,
Oh, you think you might go to a 4 at certain moments?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we will stick with the system, but I've been thinking more and more with the sign we're making. Potentially, we could have 4 at the back at times. That's not. That's just a hunch of mine. It's not nothing confirmed or anything like that.
Sure.
It's just, I think that might be potentially the evolution down the line of where we go. But I know Luke Williams has played 3 and 4 at Swindon, so I feel like having that versatility to us would give us an extra layer to our team. But in terms of first team improvements, I think it's going to be hard to improve our midfield because of Bostock and Palmer. It's difficult to sign a midfielder who's a level above them.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if we brought in a centre back, maybe that's the position where we've got Rawlinson and Brindley at right centre back, who are both very good players. But if we want to, I mean, I know we're one of the favourites for promotion, which is crazy because obviously we've only just come up. If we want to be in that conversation, maybe we bring in a centre back that does improve our back three. But it's difficult because our team has been at the top end of the division. It's hard for us to step back and go, how do we improve that?
Cover for Baldwin. Have you who's back up to Baldwin at the moment?
Yeah, well, we have Rawlinson sometimes goes across and plays there, or Badrami, and Badrami he was playing really well there until the Wrexham game when he.
Do you know, I as a Birmingham fan, I actually thought Bajrami is a really aggressive defender, and then he dropped down to I think the National League North with Kidderminster, but I always felt like he had a bit of potential to sort of come back up, and if you can add a bit of ball playing nice and maybe curb his aggression in certain areas, then maybe that could be quite an exciting player.
Oh, definitely, and he started really, really well, and to be honest, after sort of 15, 20 games, people were talking about him being our best signing of the summer. He was playing in midfield. We signed him as a player that could play centre back or midfield. He was playing in central midfield alongside Palmer. This is before Bostock signed, and it was like, yeah, Badrami and Palmer's our midfield too. It's what we've been missing for so long, and we kind of had injuries to other players meant that we kind of had to use him in other positions and even keep him on the bench sometimes because we couldn't afford to risk him being injured because our squad was so thin at that time. We had no other defenders, and then he picked up an injury of his own, so he had a difficult end to the season. But I really like him. Really, really good player, versatile, and like you say, he's got something about him, and he's a really good player. I think he could have a better season this season because of the 7 subs they're getting more matchday squads, and because of his versatility, he could be one that could play, centre back or in midfield, and I really like him.
Yeah, well, that sounds really hopeful. So in about a month's time, I've got to pick my 1 to 24s for League Two this season. I've got it wrong with Notts County in the past. The year you went down, I think I had you second to Lincoln City, so I kind of bit of a 50-50 hit rate on that one. I'm pretty clued up, I would say, on the reasons to be massively in favour of Notts County and the reasons to think that this upward trajectory is going to continue because I rate Luke Williams so highly, and I can see the path that you're on. I'm curious though to ask you, Tom, is there a reason to doubt Notts County next season?
I guess just because of the step up, and I think us and Wrexham with the bookies at least are two of the three favourites, which again is crazy to say. I know Stockport nearly went back to back, but I think everyone expected Stockport to sort of a lot
Go
of people,
straight through.
yeah, exactly, straight up, and they struggled to adapt to start with. And I know their team changed a lot more than ours probably will, but I guess that's one of the reasons. And again, we discussed it earlier, but the high line. We played probably the only team that were really on our level were Wrexham, and then you had Chesterfield that were perhaps a little bit below our level, and especially Wrexham. But Chesterfield, we also struggled a bit. When the teams had the quality to get in behind our high line, we did struggle because of the personnel we had in those games. No Baldwin against Wrexham meant we had no pace in the back line and things like that.
What's
So
the goalkeeper like coming out as well? That's an interesting one for me.
yeah, so Slocum, he was. I don't think he'll be starting for us this year, but he was very quick off his line. And he's had an underrated season. He's very quick actually. It's surprising, and he is good come off his line. And in the first half against Wrexham, we kind of got it spot on. He'd get there every time, just in time before. But it was a fine balancing act, and I think inevitably it kind of there was always going to be one or two chances where it went wrong, and it kind of did. But I think our keeper will have to come off his line and have to be good, sweeping up and be quick. And
I think that's got to be the number one attribute. If you're looking for a starting goalkeeper, I think that the number one attribute has to be their ability to come off their line quickly and decisively, and then also ability on the ball. I think those two things have got to be prioritised as importantly as the actual shot stopping.
Yeah, I think like you say, they'll be when we're looking for a keeper, they'll be up and beyond the shot stopping, which is crazy to say about a keeper, but
it's weird,
that's
isn't it? Yeah,
exactly it's the way we play, and that's so that they're possibly the two areas I would say to be precautious, but I'm confident. I think we'll be in with a chance of going up again, which I know perhaps. I think there's an optimism throughout the fan base. I think some fans will take top half of success. I think we should be aiming for playoffs minimum because of the trajectory we're on and the coach we have. But maybe that's me underestimating League Two, and the teams that have dropped down from League Two have disappointed in the National League, and maybe that's colouring my opinion of League Two. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think that it's definitely going to be a stronger league next year because of the teams coming into the league and the money coming into the league as well. But I'm really excited to watch Notts County and see how you get on. What are your plans for content across the EFL season and Notts County season in League Two next season, Tom? Because I know you do some absolutely smashing it on social stuff, and your knowledge on other players and teams and managers is absolutely top drawer. So yeah, just talk to us about your plans for next season.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that, especially coming from you. And so I've done a transfer recruitment doc for Notts already. I had to. I possibly wanted to release it a little bit later than I did, but because the wheels have started turning already, I thought I'd better get it out there before before things start happening. So that's available on my page now. It's on my pinned tweet. I'll be doing threads on every signing we make and possibly some other EFL signings as well, and National League signings too. And yeah, that's my main plans on continuing the sensible transfers throughout the summer. They're always quite good fun. So they're probably my main plans for the summer before the season, and then obviously, like you doing a 1 to 24, I'll be picking my 1 to 24 as well, giving it a go. It's always difficult, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you always get certain fans aren't happy with who you pick. I
Oh
think.
God, yeah. What are for expect, mate? You kind of used to it, but no, it's always good fun, and I think most people are really really good about it. Listen, Tom, such a pleasure to chat Notts County with you. I think you've got a huge future, wherever you want to go in terms of working in the game or in terms of content production, because you do some absolutely incredible stuff. So best luck to Notts County, best luck for the year ahead, and thanks for joining us, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, and likewise, and thank you.
Cheers. This has been EFL Debate, the Notts County Summer Deep Dive. We'll see you again next time.